Street video participant Kiley May, 2020 and 2021 imagineNATIVE and Liaison of Independent Filmmakers of Toronto participant Tim Myle, 2020 Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers participant Cody Lefthand, and 2021 imagineNATIVE and Capilano presents Micheal Auger and PD Chalifoux to discuss their process and experience creating their IN original during a global pandemic. Miigwech. Thank you to our speakers for sharing their time today, and thank you to our lead Institute partner, Netflix, Institute partner Crave, as well as Ontario Creates.
Hi everyone, I'm Joy Lowen, CEO at the National Screen Institute.
And I'm Sarah Simpson-Yellowquill, a program manager at the National Screen Institute. We're tuning in to you today from Treaty 1 territory.
We're sad we can't be with you in person, but we are with you in spirit and honored to be the mentorship partners of this panel.
We are proud to have the NSI and DigiDocs alumni, Micheal and PD, sit in on the panel.
So congratulations, Team imagineNATIVE, and happy festival, everyone.
I went to an audition. The casting director looked at me and she was just like, "Oh, you cut your hair. I used to call you Pocahontas." I froze. That in itself is a slur, and the real story of Pocahontas is one of rape and like molestation of children. So it's not a compliment. Seek more from our stories because there's so much more in the 500 plus Indigenous cultures across this country that we haven't seen in film and TV before.
You are gifted. Imagine existing beyond the physical.
The dead coming back to life.
Ain't nobody immune here but us.
You got anybody looking out for you, Rosie?
I look out for myself.
Welcome to the IN Originals panel. IN Originals commissioned films are supported by imagineNATIVE in partnership with artist organizations Charles Street Video, Liaison of Independent Filmmakers of Toronto, Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers, and Capilano University. My name is Jamie Lee Reardon. I am from Flying Post First Nations in Treaty 9 territory. I am the lead institute coordinator at imagineNATIVE, and I am pleased to be here today with Tim, Kiley, Micheal, PD, and we'll be joined shortly by Cody Lefthand. Hello, everybody. I'll just pass it over to you each to introduce yourselves. Tim, if you'd like to go first.
Okay, hello, my name is Tim Myle. I'm a Mi'kmaq actor and filmmaker from Wampakek First Nations in the island of Newfoundland. And I'm the writer-director of Little Bird.
And Kiley.
Teko sa kweko galandora youngyets kanyekahaga niwaga honjoda da nu at noala niwagi taloda ji yonchain dakwa swego nidoageno. My name's Kiley May. I'm Mohawk, Haudenosaunee, Turtle Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and I am the creator, the screenwriter, lead actor, co-producer, and co-director of Disclosure and Discretion.
Oh, look at you go. And Micheal, love to hear your introduction.
All right, that's Kiwa Neheo. Niko Kiyo, Nisigasan, Itatikaw Sipi, Itacha. My English name is Micheal Auger. My Cree name is Sharp Arrow Red Eagle Man. Woodland Cree from the within the province of Alberta, what is known as Alberta, in the northern part of it. And so writer, producer, and director for Disappearing Moon. So, yeah.
Awesome. And you co-created this with PD, correct?
Yes.
And we'll pass it over to you for your introduction, PD. PD's in via
awesome.
phone. Oh.
Sounds good.
There you are.
I am here. So I'd say Michael's the main creator of Disappearing Moon, and I'm #1 support. I'm also co-writer and producer of Disappearing Moon. My name is PD Chalifoux from the Driftpath Cree Nation in northern Alberta. And yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for joining in for the conversation. Looking forward to talking about the films that you have all created during the past, wild year, 2 years that we've all experienced kind of in isolation in a lot of ways, but having these opportunities like the films that you have all made to gather in groups and create and get to feel those vibes again of being together in community. I would love to hear from you about what your film is about. And it doesn't have to be the log line, sorry. I'm gonna re-say that whole question. We would love to hear from you what your film is about. It doesn't have to be the log line. You could just let us know what it is from your heart. And I'd love to hear from you, Micheal.
Well, Disappearing Moon, the short that we just made is about a father. So pre-contact times, I should set that up. Pre-contact times set in the Rocky Mountains. It's basically a father whose daughter vanishes sort of like in midair, like out of nowhere. And he goes on a search for her, and he comes across, eventually, his life is actually saved by the character Cosano, who is from the Little People. And the thing is, the Disappearing Moon it's what we made is like a teaser. It's we couldn't be happier with it, because what we made was really pointing us in the direction where we want to go, which is a TV series. So the short that we made, though, it's a great little story on its own, and we're really proud of it. So we're looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
That's really exciting. I look forward to hearing more in this conversation about how you look to evolve Disappearing Moon into a television series. That's super, super cool. Oh, and here we have Cody coming in from, I believe, Alberta right now.
Hi, my name's Cody Lefthand. I'm from the Eden Valley First Nation. I am Stony Bearspaw Nakota, half Tsuut'ina. I was recently elected to the board of directors of the Calgary Society of Independent Film, and I live in Calgary, Alberta.
Awesome, that's great, and congratulations for being part of the board of directors for CSIF. That's really, really cool. So we're hopping into the first question, is that we would love to hear from you what your film is about. Doesn't necessarily have to be the log line, but just what your film that you created in the Iron Originals project is, from your heart. So I could pass it right back over to you, Cody.
Okay, my film is called The Lost Lemon Mine, which is based off of a true story. Two miners, or it's set in 1870, and two miners came up from the Montana territories, and they cut through our stony hunting grounds along the Highwood River. Well, they missed a party of miners that were going up to the North Saskatchewan by a few days, so they decided to head west towards the mountains to our hunting territories. And our Chief Jacob Bearspaw, who signed Treaty 7 for us, had two scouts follow them. And the two miners struck gold. And one night, well, it was in the fall, one miner wanted to make a proper claim. The other one wanted to stay over the winter and mine as much gold as they could. And one night around the campfire, Lemon, one of the miners, got a little intoxicated and killed his partner, and took as much gold as he could and took off. And the two stony scouts that were sent out by our chief that followed them witnessed the murder, went back to the chief and told him what happened. The chief sent the scouts back to the site to get rid of any evidence of what happened there. And there's a few different stories of what actually happened to Lemon after that. One was that he made it back to Texas and lived to an old age of like 80 something on his brother's ranch in Texas. And one story is that he didn't make it as far as Montana, where the law caught up with him and he was hung for the murder of his partner. And there's another story where he came back the next spring with a group of men and they couldn't find the mine because all traces had been obliterated. So we went with the hanging story where the law caught up with him.
Quite the mystery. And this lemon mine has remained lost and has never been found, if I'm correct?
No. Yeah. There's still YouTube videos out there of people searching for it, and I wouldn't like just going out there in the mountains. I'm not gonna lie, I've wandered off the trail a time or two to see what was out there, but I've never found anything. But so one of the actors who played the murdered miner just called me the other day, and he said he has an idea for a full length. And I've got an idea for a full length. So we're going to sit down soon and see what we come up with. And
oh, that's really exciting.
Hopefully we can make a feature out of it.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely be keeping my ear to the ground for that. And what about
awesome.
you, Kiley? Could we hear about your film and the message of your film from your heart, you know?
Sure. So I actually have 2 films in the IN program this year because I actually applied for the Charles Street Video, imagineNATIVE Charles Street Video residency just before the pandemic, got it, and then the pandemic happened, and then wasn't able to do it and have it happen at last year. Well, it didn't happen Did it happen last year? My film didn't make it in time because everything got postponed. So with the generosity of imagineNATIVE and Adriana Chartrand at the time, we were able to extend that a bit and help me out. And I was able to, with that support, make another one. So I'm working on a short film trilogy called the Amorous Trilogy. The first film is Discretion, and the second one is Disclosure. So, and the third one is Devotion, but the first 2 are in the festival this year. And it basically follows an Indigenous transgender woman and how she grows and what she learns about herself as she journeys through her sex, dating, and love life. And each film is a snapshot of this character at 3 different stages of her growth and development. And each film focuses on a specific transgender experience in dating based on my own life, because dating while trans is quite an experience. And, you know, based on what I experience, I'm a writer. I go through a lot of things where I'm just like, this is like, you can't write this, you know? So it's sometimes like disheartening. It can be heartbreaking, but it's also humorous. And there's a lot of good things. So I just wanted to, you know, I had a mission of improving and increasing transgender and Indigenous representation on screen. I wanted to move away from a lot of like the tragic narratives that, you know, so often are perpetuated when it comes to Indigenous and transgender representation. And I wanted to focus on, you know, everything else, like the joy, the love, you know, like the romance, the sexiness, along with, you know, like the heartbreak as well. I'm not trying to shy away from reality. So I just had this mission of, wanting to increase our presence on screen and to move towards push the narrative forward and hopefully show people, you know, fresh, original narratives and storylines. And I also had the goal of wanting to be mentored to learn how to screenwrite and produce and direct, which this, you know, provided an amazing opportunity for. And I connected with and banded together an amazing team of producers who were more experienced and established than myself, including Joanna Swan and Fo Natasha and M. Siobhan McCourt. And we incorporated Braided Sisters Productions. And I got to work with amazing people, and I learned so much, just blown away by everyone's talent. So that's the trilogy, but the character Libby is in each film, and I play Libby. So I wrote the story, playing the lead character and being shadowed and co-directing and co-producing. So it's been quite a phenomenal experience, and I've grown so much. So it's been wonderful.
That's really cool. I feel like Libby encapsulates those emotions and those experiences, and I'm so excited to see the third installment when you create it. I definitely looking forward to that.
Thank you.
And Tim, we'd love to hear from you about what your film is about.
Yeah, so my film is called Little Bird. It's based on my grandmother's nickname for me. She used to call me Little Bird, and she passed away right before the pandemic. So I kind of wanted to pay homage to her within the title. The actual film is a semi-autobiographical story of losing my mother. My mother passed away 7 years ago, and I think at the time, you know, I moved to Toronto. I'm originally again from Newfoundland, and I moved to Toronto quickly after she passed away, and I think I really pushed down that vital time to reflect and grieve, because I was chasing, you know, this dream of becoming an actor, and I think I was, you know, trying not to think about it, which ended up hurting me in the long run because, you know, every time I would go home for the holidays or to see my family, it the grief would come out at really inappropriate times, and I found myself, you know, glimpses of that like that pain would come out, and it would just be during the pandemic. It really made me sit down and reflect and think about her, and think about what I've gone through for the past 7 years, and what my family has gone through. But the actual story is a young man named Jonah, and he's in the middle of giving a eulogy at his mother's funeral. And during the eulogy, in a grief-induced panic attack, he steals the urn and runs away with her ashes, to spend one final day with her. Yeah, we shot over a week in Southampton, Ontario, up on the Saugeen Shores, Saugeen First Nations, the land of the people of the Three Fire. They were amazing. They welcomed us onto their land and into their homes, and we met with the elders, and they were actually in the film as well. And it was just a beautiful experience. It's a love letter to my heritage and to my mother, who was a Mi'kmaq woman. I grew up around my non-native side of the family, and my mom always made sure that we had our heritage close, and she was learning the Mi'kmaq language up until she passed. And our house was full of like all of the art from the reservation, and she would have jackets made, and she was a very fashionable woman. So I really wanted to pay homage to her and to my Mi'kmaq heritage.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Little Bird is a very, very beautiful film. I mean, I was sobbing while watching it, literally, not just crying, like had to catch my breath. It was very touching, and I could feel the healing that kind of that happened through that process in the film. It's very, very beautiful. It was such an honor to get to watch every one of your films and to get to see them evolve from what, you know, the application process, or from the original conversations that you guys brought in the intro meetings with Adriana and I, to getting to see these films that have been created. Is just, it's a magical process, I think, and it's a great thing to be a part of. You guys were all the creators of your short films, and you've each played very specific and different roles in the production and post-production of the film. What was that experience like when you had various hats to wear? I'll start with you, Kiley.
It was definitely overwhelming at times. So I went into it knowing that, you know, I had the drive, I had the determination and the ambition and the energy, and I thought to myself, like, I can handle this. And my amazing producer friend, Joanna Swan, you know, very, she has a lot of like keen foresight, and she's so experienced and she's so intuitive. And she's like, you know, this might be a lot you're taking on. I'm like, no, I can handle it. But there were definitely moments where I felt the pressure of everything coming down, because each role has a lot of responsibilities, like being the screenwriter and the producer and having to switch back and forth. So I felt a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. And it was definitely strange, like in planning, like having planning meetings with producers, directors, the director, and having just like the DP, wardrobe, everyone on a meeting, and like back and forth. I had to be in each meeting, and then I had to be like, okay, you're not the actor now, you have to be the director, and you're not the director right now, you're the screenwriter. And okay, put the screenwriter aside, now you have to be the actor. And it was very, very interesting. Even with like intimacy coordinators, it's like, okay, you're not you just have to focus on being an actor right now. So it was a lot. There were moments where I definitely felt like I took on too much, but I got through it. There, like for example, when I felt the most pressure was when we were filming the first one, Discretion. Like the first shot, the first day, I was like, there was so much, pressure because I had to perform, I had to focus on acting, and then people asking me questions all over. And then I just remember this moment before we shot, like I was shaking, my hands were shaking just from all of like the energy, the excitement, like the creative chaos happening all over the place. And then Joanna had to like come in and like look me in the eyes and sort of like shake me a bit. And she's like, you got this, just like drop in, be an actor right now. So I like to challenge myself, and I like to stretch myself and see like, what my limits are. So I pushed myself to the limits. I learned a lot of things. I learned, learned a lot of things about myself and other people, but it was a challenge. And going forward, I'm learning, my capacity, what I can handle. And just like being realistic about things, because I have a responsibility to everybody else to like deliver, to perform, to meet deadlines. And if I overwhelm myself, then I let the team down or let other people down. So I learned a lot. So going forward, I'll know how to just like be more cautious of what I can handle, and my mental health. Oh my gosh. So that was affected because of like the pandemic also, but just a lot of reminders of having to take care of myself and remind myself moments where I'm a superhero and a warrior, and moments where I'm a human and I have limits. So it was wonderful. It was challenging, but rewarding because I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah, I could imagine that would definitely be a learning experience, taking this all on as your first short series that you're creating, and then just being like, all right, I'm going to take part in every aspect of it. That would be a truckload of responsibility, I imagine. And Micheal and PD, between the two of you, that's the director, producer, writer, creator, and PD also acted in Disappearing Moon. So having all of those responsibilities as well put onto your plate for this creation, what was that like?
I can go first there, Micheal, if you like. And I'd say it was very interesting and stressful. That's what I would say in short. But maybe Micheal will talk now.
I was going to say, now you know what PD's doing in Italy. She's a hoop dancer, so she couldn't resist the invitation to go back to the Spirit of the Planet Festival. So I'm very, very lucky to have her as a filmmaking partner and my life partner. And she's very creative and very just all around solid. And for the production, so this is, I would say, we've made more than 3 films. But there's 3 films this is the third of 3 films that come to mind because they were very much focused on, or they were made on the land in large part. So a lot of our shooting and production was on the land. And this one was the most remote. So we knew right off the bat that there would be challenges with that. And in addition to the pandemic, out west here, there was a lot of fires in BC and in Alberta and, everywhere in the north and south of us. But anyways, so as a result of those combination of things, we lost like 7 or 8 people that were supposed to come out, and some of them the day before. So that was our most immediate challenge. But we were determined, and with the people we had, we gathered and we pushed on. Luckily, the weather cooperated because all the shots were exterior. They were all outdoors, so we were at the mercy of the weather. And of course, we prayed hard and put tobacco and everything. And we brought our elder, and it turned out really, really well in terms of the production process. In spite of being short on crew, we pulled through. So I'm really, really proud of that. And why I say this is the third of three films, and is that the first two we were I'm like, okay, now I learned so much, and I'm going to apply that, and I know it's going to help, and it does. But every production is still very different. Every production has its own unique challenges, unique dynamics, unique energy. And so one of the lessons out of that from this time around is like, you got to trust the process. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust the people around you. Even if you're short, 7 or 8 people, you still have to trust. And what an amazing challenge that was. But the script, the story we had in mind, what we ended up with on film is a bit different, but we're still very, very proud of it. The essence is there, the story is there. And again, learning to enjoy the journey is so much, or as much as you want, you have a picture in your mind of how you want this to look and be and feel and so on, but you have to trust. And we're proud of what we got. So
yeah, that's a huge part of it, just having that trust and knowing that everything will fall in place as it has to. You put the good energy into it, you put the hard work into it, and that backed behind the belief that this is something that I need to do and that needs to get created. And then all of a sudden you have your beautiful film that's going to get screened at the festival, and then so many places from then on out, which is really exciting. I'd like to talk a little bit about what it was like to create a film during the global pandemic. I know this must have changed some of the ways in which you worked and went about making the film. Tim, I would like to pass that question to you first.
Yeah, I think, it's, well, for starters, I mean, the film was pushed a full summer. Originally, we were supposed to shoot in 2020. And then, because of the pandemic, I mean, imagineNATIVE and everybody was so, so supportive, and they just wanted to see it happen. So I felt the support when we didn't have a lot of options and we just had to push. As for actually filming, we went through, we were a union production. We had to follow ACTRA protocols. And we tested all of our crew, our cast. We had a COVID officer. Everyone had to report to the COVID officer at the beginning of every day. We made sure that all of our elders were protected and separated and from the rest of the crew. We took extra precautions because we were coming into, there was a large group of us coming into the Saugeen First Nations, and we just wanted to make sure that, number one, they felt comfortable with us being there, and just whatever precautions that were needed. But other than that, it was rewarding because I got to go up early in order to kind of prepare for everything, because for a lot of the time we couldn't go on a location scout because we were in lockdown in Toronto. So we had to push all of our location scouts, and everything kind of just got like virtual. And it's like, oh, how much can we actually do right now? Like, not a lot. So it was a lot of just for a while there sitting around. But when everything kind of, as soon as everything opened back up, we got our travel letters and we said, we are going. So yeah, we went, and because of, everything that happened, we ended up getting a certain location and a certain, we took over a little area of the town, and it was really beautiful. And I got to meet some really, really great people from Saugeen First Nations. I have some new aunties, and all of that happened because of the specific location that we chose to use, because of moving it a year. So there were some struggles, but ultimately everything worked out for a reason, and I'm grateful.
That's beautiful. And I mean, you got some new aunties from it, so you know you went the right path. I always love
Oh my God.
aunties. I'm like, yes, so blessed.
Oh, they were the best. They were such a blast, and they were just so excited to be there. And they called their it was amazing. Their energy. I shared pictures of my mother with them, and they said, you know, like, we know her. She's so familiar, her spirit. I know your mother, and it was just very healing, because I lost a lot of my aunties, you know, back home up in Conn River. A lot of my family has passed away. You know, it's been like a long struggle, a sad a sad life. So but beautiful life. But yeah, so I gained them, and I'm honored for it.
It's really beautiful. And Cody, you were able to complete your film in 2020 and were the sole IN original at last year's festival. What was it like for you to create a film during a global pandemic, and how did that change the way in which you worked as a filmmaker and director?
Nothing opened up, and we weren't allowed to start shooting until July 1st. And by that time at CSIF, Calgary Society of Independent Film, everybody was eager to get back to work. So all the equipment went out, like, was already rented out months in advance. And so we had to wait until the end of July. We shot for 5 days and 3 more days of pickups. And we had weather problems. Well, it was sunny most of the time, but the day our drone guy came out, it just poured on us. So, and he had to travel an hour and a half south of town. We had to pay for his travel and his day. And what I learned from the experience was my time management. I was running around trying to do everything by myself. In the summer times, I work for John Scott Productions. He recently made a documentary about him that won fan favorite at Calgary International Film Festival last year. So I knew what props I wanted. The props were here. It was just the wardrobe part. And I got lucky. He introduced me to a lady who introduced me to another lady who opened up her costume shop just for us to go in. She bought most of the buckskin outfits. Well, we experimented with buckskin because we're like, how are we gonna tan hides and make these outfits for these Stony Scouts? And we experimented with canvas and different colored paints, but we're introduced to Relami from the Costume Collective. She's awesome. She's my new wardrobe lady. And she bought the buckskins from that HBO miniseries Lewis and Clark that was shelved. So she had all that stuff, which was awesome. And yeah, just what I learned from it was my time management. And John Scott, he was kind of giving me guff about, you need to hire an assistant. You can't do this all on your own, which I was trying to do. And there were times where, well, we were given the option to just put everything on hold and try again this year. But if I didn't have that to work on during lockdown, I would have gone insane. Seriously, just locked up in my tiny apartment downtown, and I actually made a volleyball with Wilson's face on it from Castaway. So it was just me and Wilson in our apartment. And so, and it gave me more time to research the project. That's where I found out that 3 different stories of what happened to Lemon. And I got a lot of help from my family. Everyone who's in there is my family. My brother-in-law and my brother are the Scouts. My dad played Chief Jacob Bearspaw. We got lucky with Lemon, one of the prospectors, was the kid from Heartland, which is John Scott's grandson. And Blackjack, the other prospector, he's in a lot of commercials, who worked at John Scott's on a project once. And yeah, they clicked together. Like, they were awesome together. They met for the first time on set, first day of shooting. And yeah, they just hit it out of the park. They were awesome.
That's really cool. It's like great to hear that, you know, you learned the time management skills, which is super important when you're trying to take these things on, especially without an assistant, when you're like directing and writing and creating. And then also, you know, having the family and friends and past work experiences and being able to like call that back in and have that support come to you in your time of need, especially during, you know, the pandemic, to be able to create your film and have that be like a polished product and ready to screen at last year's festival. It was really great. And I know that you've adapted some things and made some changes since the festival as well, which is super cool. And I definitely look forward, you know, to hearing more about the project that you're looking to work on and turn into a feature. For that question about creating a film during the global pandemic, I'd like to pass it over to Micheal. And I believe PD's probably gone back over to the celebration now, but if you're able to elaborate on what it was like for you to create your film during a pandemic.
Creating the film during a pandemic, I would say, was quite a challenge, but also not. So that's one of the reasons we decided that Disappearing Moon would be the best film, is because we could shoot outdoors, knowing that we would have as much space as we needed from between actors and between crew. And then, of course, you know, keeping in mind who's vaccinated, who's unvaccinated, who feels safe, and, you know, staying within all the protocols that are put in place. And I'd say we managed very well. Everybody was quite pleased and happy. And, you know, one of our ladies, one of the people that Micheal mentioned earlier that we lost in total was 8 people. But one of them was our wig lady. She actually had COVID. So we were in the situation day before filming of how do we get our wigs and who's going to put them on and how are we going to deal with this? So she had to sanitize the whole box of all the supplies and the wigs and all that. And then kind of like put it on the road and push it towards us, and we got it, and away we went. So that was one of our challenges, but overall during the pandemic, I would say we managed quite well, and I'm happy and pleased with what we got out with.
So if I can add to that, going back before we shot this to when the pandemic started, we've been developing Disappearing Moon for several years, and the original idea was actually inspired by the place where we filmed, but it was I came up with the concept starting with a feature film, which I'd still like to do, but since we've been developing it, we really feel that a series, whether that's like a limited 8-part or ongoing series, would really be well suited to the story world and the concept that we want to go with. But so when the pandemic started, we lost a lot of projects that we were like, we have a production company where we do different projects for government, for, you know, like we do this on a full-time basis. And the goal, of course, is to make scripted narrative stuff on a full-time basis, but we also do other stuff to pay our rent and so on. But anyway, so the pandemic stopped a lot of our production work. And so we had all this time for more development, right? More writing. And so it was really a mixed blessing. And of course, you know, you have no idea how long it's going to last. You have no idea how serious or devastating it's going to be. So even though we had more time to write, we were still very much, you know, trying to stay present with the challenges that would come every day or any day in terms of, you know, just the pandemic in general. But anyways, we got to write, and so we're really, really happy about that. And then again, like PD mentioned, you know, we thought, well, we weren't planning to do a short, but when the opportunity came, we knew that it was a perfect fit. Again, partly because we knew this would be filmed outside, and so when we actually got to filming, some of the restrictions were coming down. So that timing worked out well, as it turns out, because now restrictions are being ramped up again. But mainly because we were outdoors, it was a little bit easier on us from that part in terms of the pandemic. And then also, we shot, this back in July, early July, and the industry here in Vancouver was it was really ramping up. So it was hard to find people who wanted to come out to the mountains, to an isolated area to begin with, but some were up for it because it was sort of like an adventure, a different place to do film work. And so we got people, but then again, so it was just back and forth in all kinds of ways, all kinds of different challenges. But again, overall, trusting the process and just trusting, the intentions that you have in terms of wanting to tell a story, and feeling like, the story serves a bigger purpose in terms of, our world and the challenges we have overall in general as Indigenous people. That's what motivates us to do the films, the stories that we do, and to work with the organizations and companies and, different places that want their stories told, even a short 5-minute piece. Like, just quick example is we're doing a 5-minute video on, they're taking down a dam out in Trail, BC. And so they're restoring the wetlands there. And we're really proud of that kind of work, just as we are with Disappearing Moon. So we do this on a full-time basis, and we're really grateful and really, proud of being able to tell Indigenous stories. But of course, storytelling or filmmaking, it's a team effort. And so, we work with everybody and anybody that wants to be a part of the stories that we're passionate about. And that happened with this short production of Disappearing Moon. So.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to, get to build your team and get to see and recognize the positives that have come out of this past situation, because there's a lot of real negative things that we could dwell on and we could sit in, but to see the highlights there, the silver linings is really important, and to be able to see the growth also that you're able to have as a filmmaker, as a creative in that time. Kiley, what was it like for you to create your films during a pandemic?
Definitely challenging for sure, from a production level, but also on a personal level. Very similar to, what Tim and Cody, PD and Micheal were saying about just things being delayed, first of all. And yeah, just the uncertainty, that was one thing for sure when everything was shut down. And just sort of having to go along with what was happening and being patient. But, my film, The Disclosure, which is part 2, but we shot that one first. I originally envisioned that as a summer film. And we were going to shoot it in the summer of 2020 originally, but it got pushed back to the end of September. So now it looks like a kind of fall movie, kind of, I don't know, but it's fine. It's all good. So just having to sort of be willing to roll with the punches, as filmmaking usually is, regardless if there's a pandemic or not, but having to be extra open, being flexible, compromising, just being okay, we just have to work with the reality of what we have. The timelines shifting within the within the narrative, which is fine, but it also caused some other challenges for locations. So for the second one, Discretion, it was difficult to find a location, so we had to go through Airbnb, which is fine. We found a really cool house, but we had to tell these homeowners that we're a production, we're shooting, we're going to have all these people there, but it's going to be an extra production, we're following all the rules. So we had to find somebody who trusted us, who felt safe with that many people in their home, and then having to be all of us within one location inside of a house, because COVID, if you don't know, for people who aren't filmmakers and producers, adds a whole other budget line. It costs more money. You're having to pay for COVID supervisors, COVID nurses on set. You have to pay for tests and and like P&E, everything. So it just makes everything more expensive. And it's just like, okay, I get it. We have to do this. It's safety, but it also adds more stress for a producer because it's just like, then you have to like shift everything around in the budget. So that was challenging, having to like, find that extra revenue or accumulate more, production money to help make that possible. And the other thing is both my films, so all my films feature scenes of intimacy. So we had to, have an intimacy. Well, I wanted to have an intimacy coordinator. I always wanted to, but COVID, making that happen was difficult. So even something as simple as a kiss, for the longest time, we were like, you can't even do that. And we were like, and it's one of those things where, as like a creator, as a director, as a producer, as a screenwriter, there's moments where I have to like put my foot down in terms of like, this is necessary to the script. And there's moments when you have to just like let things go and just work within the confines. But I was adamant. I was like, it's not as simple as a kiss. It's like so important, like holding hands, being close. But luckily, because it was postponed, by the time we were able to shoot, disclosure, at the end of September 2020, like the restrictions lifted. So it was safer, because I had seen shows, like movies and TV shows, like in the States, like completely having to be rewritten, like absolutely no intimacy, people staying far apart. I've seen people like with giant plastic barriers, like on like dates or whatever. I'm like, are we going to have to do this? But we didn't. So by the time we got to do it, we got to do the kiss. So it was like, I was very grateful for that. We did the testing, everything was fine. And then in the second one we shot, which is part one in the trilogy, Discretion, there was more intimacy. So aside from like the intimacy coordinating safety for the actors, we also had to do that. And between every take where we had to kiss like over and over and over again, we had someone come in with Listerine. We had to like rinse for like 30 seconds and then spit into this pen, and then he took it away. And after a while, my mouth was just burning from all the Listerine, but it's fine. We were super safe. No one got sick, which is good. But yeah, it adds a lot in terms of like production, like just extra things to be aware of, everyone being in confine, adding, it costing more money, more stress, but also on a personal level for all of us, like having like my major depressive disorder was triggered during the pandemic, and like having to live inside my super tiny apartment by myself and having to work and be super productive. That was so hard, because I, like going out somewhere to like an office or going to a job somewhere, or being a student where you can go somewhere in an environment that feels like work makes you work. But when you're just in your teeny tiny little studio apartment, it's hard to like keep up that, level of productivity. So I really struggled, with my mental health and just like the weight of everything coming down on me and all of the uncertainty. And that, affected a lot of what I was able to do. And it was definitely, there were definitely hard times. There were like, I had a lot of breakdowns, like mini breakdowns along the way. But what's amazing about my team, our production company, is that we all agreed. We had like this producer agreement between all of us, like Joanna, Fona, M, and I, that we would be very transparent with each other, that we would have empathy and compassion and support, and that we allowed ourselves to show up and be fully human. We agreed that we would not, that it was not a working environment, and it was not a team or a production company where we had to show up and be robots and be professional, where we couldn't talk about our emotions or we couldn't talk about our mental health, because that's the case in a lot of working environments or on a lot of sets. You just have to show up and like do the job and be a worker and put your personal problems aside, or you can't, be vulnerable, or you can't talk about what you're going through. So we agreed that we wouldn't do that. And each of us along the way, we all dealt with, our challenges with our mental health, or, our personal things that we were going through. A lot of us had hardships. So we supported each other through that. As one of us sort of had to take a step back or like, drop down, we were there to support each other, lift each other back up, step in, take over. So I'm so grateful that I had a team where we could really nurture and support each other in that way. So, I mean, when I say it was challenging, it was like multiple layers of challenges during a pandemic. But what's funny about it in hindsight, I can say now, because when I started this thing, I said, I want to learn how to make a film. I want to learn how to produce and co-direct. And then doing all of that, learning all of this for the first time during a pandemic taught me extra things I don't think I would have learned, teaching me how to really, as I mentioned earlier, having to compromise and negotiate and be open-minded and not being too married to ideas and just being flexible and just rolling with the punches and that's just the way it is. And those moments when I have to do that versus moments when I know that I have to speak up for what is necessary and important from like a storytelling perspective, from a screenwriting, producing, directing. So yeah, like what Michael said, sort of like a blessing in disguise, I guess. It taught me some tough stuff, and I learned my voice got stronger through the process, so.
That's amazing to hear about like your team and hear you speak about how you guys were like so there for each other, how supportive you all were, and how open communication and transparency was like a key piece in how you produced these films. And it adds so much more meaning to the production name, like Braided Sisters. That's really like what it is. You guys became family and like really grew together in that process and had each other to support throughout all of that, which I mean is so amazing. I fled the city March 2020. I was like, I'm out, headed north to my mom's house, and spent the majority of the pandemic in the bush, because I was like, I just feel like better than I would in my studio basement apartment, I think. Being in nature and around family and everything. So it's great to hear that as filmmakers, you were able to create that family, whether you were literally bringing your family onto the film with you, or if you were creating a new family with your creative team and the other actors and other, supports that you had. It's very special to have had that. I'd like to ask you all each just one question about your project, and then hear about what you're working on. I know we're coming up to our time shortly, so I loved being introduced to Libby in Discretion and in Disclosure. It was great to see her character growth between the two films and witness her come into her power, leading with agency in her decisions. And I know I'm not alone when I say, what's next for Libby? Like, I'm invested. I want to know more about her character. Where is she going? We get another film. Is there something else after that? Is there going to be a show, a feature? Like, I want to hear just a little bit more about where you dream Libby's future.
There is, for sure. So as I mentioned, these films are part of a trilogy, the Amorous Trilogy. I call it the Amorous Trilogy because I wanted to really not only increase and improve presence on screen and representation for Indigenous trans characters, but I also wanted to hopefully create a conversation, because there are so many, in my experience, so many men. There are so many people who are attracted to trans people, but have so many weird personal stuff and hangups about it, or there's just a lot of things that I feel like we need to bring to light and to talk about it. A lot of people just generally, when it comes to love and relationships, if we're talking like 2SLGBTQ, identities, like I wanted to destigmatize and normalize trans attraction. And so transamorous, amory is like, love, to talk about these things and to hopefully show people that it's, our lives are not just struggle. We have love as well. We can thrive and we can be happy. We are just like everybody else. And so I want to show that on screen and hopefully just show people that it's okay to like love ourselves, because Libby's on a journey of loving herself, but also to hopefully encourage people who are attracted to trans people, or anybody in our community, to just like love who you love. Like, life is short, really. So the next film in the trilogy is Devotion. So the first one, Discretion, is, I played with genres as well. So the first one is a drama. It's like a breakup story. The second one is a romantic comedy. So it's basically a date scenario when Libby meets somebody. And the third one is called Devotion, and it's when Libby finds herself in a long-term healthy relationship. So she, progresses from a relationship that's a secret, somebody who wants to keep your secret because he is not ready to be authentic to himself. The second one is the experience of having to tell somebody that you're trans when you're dating. And the third one is just about a man who is in a relationship with a trans woman, and he takes her home to meet his family over dinner, which is a pretty simple thing, but for that character, she's never had that experience before. So I'm working on the script for that right now, and that's our next thing for Braided Sisters Productions, is coming up with funding for that. So that's next. We have talked about working on one of them and developing either of them into a feature film, which is a potential thing. And aside from that, I'm also developing a TV series with a producer, and working on a book. So, and that I might also develop into a TV series. So lots of exciting things.
That's super exciting. And I mean, keep an eye out. The Indigenous Screen Office has a lot of opportunities happening right now, and they'll have a panel letting you know about their available opportunities on October 23rd during Industry Days. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be really exciting. And Cody, I'd like to hear a little bit more about you, I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about what your plans are with the feature that you're kind of pulling into ideas. Is this going to be built off of the Lost Lemon Mine, or is it a different project altogether?
Well, we'll have to see what Ramon's plans are, who played Blackjack, and I don't know. I wanted to go up every genre, like that was more of a Western, but based off of true facts or a true story. And what I'm doing now is, well, my project that I got funding for is a World War I project. But the feature that I wanted to do was kind of like a horror, which really isn't my genre, but like a found footage thing. Like, people go out searching for the mine and they find it, and they get gold fever and start picking each other off one by one, and somebody finds the footage, kind of like they're documenting it, kind of thing. And I just want to hear what his story is. But I just got off last week. We just wrapped on a documentary out in Blackfoot country about, it's for the CBC. It's a CBC documentary about a Blackfoot cowboy that follows him from residential school in the 50s up until now when he's an old man. So it follows him in his teen years and as an adult, and then as he gets older. And just a few days ago, started my own documentary with a director out of Calgary, Gary Burns. It's called, well, the working title is Hollywood and the Past 100 Years and the Stony People, because they've shot a lot of movies out in the mountains, like Stony Country, Morley, Eden Valley, like from black and white silent films up to the talkies to now with like The Revenant and Billy the Kid shooting right now. And my first interview was my dad, because he was in a lot of movies as a kid. Like his first one was Little Big Man. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie, starring Dustin Hoffman. It had Chief Dan George in it, and it was about Custer's last stand. So he was our first interview, and then we got a list of people who are, we just want to get their stories before they're gone. And so we'll be doing that over the fall, which keeps pushing my project, which I think I might have to wait until the spring. But I've got the sets built. We got a few shots done, but I ordered this wardrobe from Vancouver and it's just sitting there, and the bill on that just keeps rising and rising. So I think I might have to send it back. Like, we got this set built. It looks like no man's land. There's craters and dead trees, barbed wire and trenches. And my brother drives the water truck out on the reserve. So he's going to hose us down and make it look like it's raining. And so that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, that's great. That's really exciting to hear, like, the plethora of things that you're doing right now, and the work that's coming out of Calgary that you're, or out of Alberta that you have your hands in, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it really picked up around here. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to work on. There's The Last of Us, the zombie movie. They were shooting that in High River. It was scary. Post-apocalyptic High River. I never seen High River look like that before. It was scary, but
it's wild what films can
cool
do
at the same time.
How they could transform, something so familiar into like a totally different landscape. I've seen, like, I went to college in Sudbury, Ontario, and I've seen them turn it into like old Russia downtown. And I'm like, how did they do this? Like, it was Miami before, and they had like palm trees in November and people walking around in swimsuits. I was like, it's winter. Like, you cannot be wearing these clothes at this time. That's really funny. I like to see those changes, and I think that would be an interesting documentary in its own. Like, this is what the place actually looks like, but this is what we made it into. I'd like to hear from PD and Micheal. Could you provide a little teaser as to what might be happening to Morningstar? And let our audiences know if we can expect to see her again.
Morningstar is actually going to be our young a character who is also a time traveler. So although our story is set in pre-contact, she's actually going to be able to go into today's world, into the future. And the main concept with her character, she's our lead. She's the one who's driving the story in terms of our connection to the star beings and the connection that many other nations have around the world, such as the Hopi tribe, the Egyptians. So we want to tie it all together with the constellations and bring forth those stories we were told as young people. Like, as an example, being told that one day black snakes will cover this earth. And we see that today with the pipelines. That's an example of one of the many things that are going to be incorporated into the story. And Morningstar is our character who's going to do that. We're going to go to protests. We're going to go to the front lines. We're going to go back in time to her people. And her character is to, save and prevent Earth from mass destruction. So there's a very big storyline going on, and that's Morningstar.
Yeah, definitely Morningstar. Like, what we're seeing is, we want to plant the seed in terms of the dynamics of, the relationship we still have as Indigenous people with our Mother Earth. So, but Morningstar will be the person that will thread everything together in terms of, some cultures don't actually, like, historically, traditionally, don't really have a concept of time. Like, time doesn't really exist. And I really like that. And so that's one of the things we're hoping to play with when we get this into a series. So yeah, she's definitely the main character and the driving force that we're gonna explore this whole world with.
That's really cool. I look forward to traveling through time with Morningstar when the series gets developed. That's super exciting to see, like, her in all of these different time periods. And I really like what PD said about the snakes taking over all over the earth, like seeing that and connecting that with the pipelines. Like, that's so clear. And I think that that's going to be a really important story to be able to tell and share. I'd like to ask you, Tim, you've described your film Little Bird as a belated love letter from a son to his late mother. It's heart-wrenching and beautiful. How does it feel for you to be able to share this offering now?
Well, Alan, thank you. I appreciate that. It's healing for sure. You know, the whole process was very cathartic. It was a healing journey for me. Sharing it with the world. You know, there's a line in the film from one of the characters who's played by Sherry Miracle, who's actually turned out to be a great friend of mine. I really, really look up to her. And in the film, she says, you know, the thing about grief is you don't have to bear it alone. Don't bear it alone. And I think for a lot of the time leading up to, you know, or just after my mother passed away, I was carrying it alone. And like I said earlier, I was pushing it down. And so this kind of just feels like everything just kind of like erupted into the universe and onto screens. And I'm so grateful to share it with people. I've had some it's doing a festival run right now, and you know, we're in our festival run, and I've gotten some very great messages, very nice messages from people who kind of relate, whether they've lost a loved one, anyone. You know, this film is for anyone who's lost somebody who, you know, you're not alone, and find others who you can share your stories with, share your pain with, because ultimately it'll bring light.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful message, and it's conveyed so clearly throughout the film. And that conversation, that scene with when she shares that line with you, you know, that hits so heavy, and it's so important, and something that in those moments of grief you might feel, you know, disconnected, but remembering that there's other people that are experiencing this too, and those people are often there and needing you, or, you know, wanting to be there for each other. So that's really important. It's such a beautiful film. You can watch Tim's film Little Bird, Kiley's films Discretion and Disclosure, and Micheal and PD's film Disappearing Moon in the Ion Originals showcase at imagineNATIVE. And keep an eye out for future screenings of Cody's film Lost Lemon Mine. Is there somewhere coming up that our audience will be able to check that out? It screened during last year's Ion Originals.
We're gonna submit the new version that we updated to a few more festivals before we actually released it anywhere, but
I really enjoyed the new version as well, and I look forward to watching all of your films and keeping track of all of your careers and seeing the wonderful things all of you create. I'm super excited and proud of all of the work, and I want to congratulate you all on your wonderful projects that you've created during such trying times, and I look forward to just continuing to watch all of your careers flourish. Thank you so much for joining us with this conversation, and take care, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Well,